Elvin.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a good lunch. We apologize for the delay in this session because we were affected also by the delays in the plenary, so we sincerely apologize. I would deliver the presentation very shortly, just to put into context what we are trying to do here under the Solutions Project, and also in terms of the strategies, the policies and actions in the different regions or sub-regions in Asia in terms of looking at how to reduce the externalities from transportation, particularly the emission side. Just a brief background, I'm working for Cleaner Asia. We are looking at ways to make our cities livable by supporting activities that reduce emissions in the cities. So one of them would be transportation. One point that we would like to make, and you all know this, the dynamism in Asia, rapid growths in terms of economic development, rapid growths in terms of population. We are now home to more than 4 billion people. 44% are living in urban areas. And from 2010 to 2050, we expect the addition of another billion, and 64% will be living in urban areas. So our cities will be straining in terms of additional pressures coming from these additional population, additional demands for services, including transportation as well. The slide you see here is a slide on road vehicles. The main point that we would like to make here is that you can see the actual levels of total vehicles. Those are the bars that you see. For Asia, we still have a long way to go, also in terms of motorization rates, so vehicles per capita, vehicles per 1,000 people, as compared to the more developed regions globally. But we are seeing that the increase in terms of the growth rates for the population of vehicles is quite robust in the region as well. This is a slide just to give you an idea. This was the work that we've done a year ago, looking at the shares in terms of the vehicles. We are now hosting 460 million vehicles. These are sample statistics from 13 countries in Asia, the major countries that we look at. And at this current growth rates, it would probably double within 7 years. So we include also the rapid rise in terms of, like for example, your two-wheelers and three-wheelers. One thing to note is also the increase in or the dominance of private passenger vehicles, so 88%, including, of course, the two-wheelers and the passenger cars would be very much instrumental in that. This next slide you see here is actually data from the IEA. From 1971 to 2010, you would have an 8-fold increase in terms of the total GHG emissions in all of these countries that are listed. But in terms of the CO2 per capita, it's actually higher than that. It's 9.6-fold per capita. So this means that the individual production or the individual emissions in terms of CO2 is actually rising and still rising in Asia because of our growth and development. And in terms of relating this to transportation, you can see the percentage of total emissions from transportation. And the first one, the blue ones, very high for many of the countries in terms of the total emissions from energy. And if you compare the road transport emissions, these are highly substantial to the contribution to the transport emission, and also in terms of the total emissions. One thing that we have looked into is also like the dependence of Asia in terms of diesel. This would give you the percentages, for example, of the fleet estimates, the different vehicles that are using diesel. In more advanced countries, we would have more advanced technologies to mitigate emissions, the local air pollutant emissions also. But this also poses a big problem especially for the developing countries in Asia, where we are still employing very old technologies for diesel. And we are seeing, for example, the impacts on our cities, Our data set containing 310 cities would give you more than 55% of these cities are living in cities with poor air quality, which do not meet the WHO guidelines, for example, PM10. And this gives you all sorts of problems in terms of premature deaths, to, also in terms of morbidity, mortality costs, and from the different pollutants that you would have, your criteria air pollutants, also you take into consideration your greenhouse gas emissions and also your toxic emissions. So yeah, I would just like to give you the context. Probably this would also be mentioned by several speakers later. The avoid, shift, improve. It's really avoiding the need for motorized travel, shifting the travel to more environmentally friendly modes, and improving the efficiencies, environmental performance of modes and of fuels. And but we need to put also the emissions agenda into a more holistic type of paradigm, looking at the different aspects that we would like to look into: provision of quality transport service, accessibility, increased mobility, social equity, quality of life, among other things. Okay, this is just a slide that we have come up with, but this is more for the Southeast Asia. We looked at different policies that are the official, from the official plans and the programs. We tried to make some quantification in terms of what they're trying to do and trying to categorize those. We are seeing there are a lot of policies right now on the improve side, so improving your vehicles and your fuels, looking at emission standards, fuel standards. But there are very few initiatives in the sub-region looking at the avoid policies, urban planning, for example, which integrates transportation. So main message would be really we cannot avoid the avoid policies. We do have, it costs money to delay implementation in a lot of the different strategies that we would like to put in the cities. And the optimum solution is not a single solution. It's actually a combination of the different solutions depending on the context of the city. Again, we'd like to emphasize, put into context the dynamism in Asia. We're experiencing rapid economic, socioeconomic growth, but we have to put everything into context in terms of looking at solution and also looking at combinations. But we highlight the benefits of moving forward with low emissions transport pathways. And also, we would like to maximize the opportunity to learn from the other regions in the globe. So thank you very much for your time.
So Oliver Lahr from the Wuppertal Institute, and I'll be providing a short introduction to our project, which is called Solutions, focusing on urban mobility solutions in Europe, Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And the link between the two elements that we're primarily talking about, beyond a vast area of additional socioeconomic and environmental effects, is the link between greenhouse gas emissions and urban air pollutants in urban areas. And here really Solutions aims to make some progress on exchange between cities and focusing on the take-up and solutions in cities. So our project is funded by the European Commission and brings together a happy family of 27 partners in 18 countries, some of which are here with us, which is fantastic. And we're now in the midterm of the project, and we are bringing together cities and researchers to foster the take-up of sustainable urban mobility solutions. And we do that with various activities. So we're doing global dialogue activities like this one to reach out to other networks and to share our experiences and get more input from experts like you. So we'd be more than happy to talk to you in this session and find us anywhere and give us your ideas or your demands and your needs in the areas that you're working in. We provide networking opportunities and share experiences and promote solutions that have been successful somewhere, and we want them to be a success somewhere else as well around the world. And as I said, we are active in Europe, Asia, the northern part of Africa, and Latin America. And we're working more specifically in China, India, Brazil, Mexico, and Turkey, I should say, as well, where we working very closely with cities, and you will hear from Ashish in a minute as well, how we do that in India on feasibility studies. And some of the work that we have been doing so far is from the knowledge of our 27 project partners. We have, as a first start, a stocktake report on the successful solutions that cities have been working on so far, to pull that together to give our cities that we are working with a basket of solutions that they can pick and choose from. And we're then working with these cities together on their needs assessment and trying to find out what is really bothering them and what are the opportunities that we can work with. And we've now continued to the hot phase of the feasibility studies in China, India, Mexico, and Brazil, and that will lead to guidelines for uptake. And this will not just be on the technical potential of those solutions, but also, and that's where it's becoming a little bit tricky, even though we have good relations with our cities, but we also want to hear from them where are the real barriers, where are the real problems, which department is not talking to another department, where are linkages on the policy side that aren't made. So all these nitty-gritty day-to-day policy implementation issues that inhibit the take-up of potentially successful solutions. So this is the key product of the project that we're aiming to share in 1.5 years' time after the project is finished. And that will be also interesting to see how different that is in the different continents that we're working with. And we are also providing some advice to the European Commission on where to put their money in the future. So they are having, you may or may not have heard about the European Framework Program, which is the biggest research funding program in the world. And they are keen on working with other non-European countries on sharing European experiences, but also learning from the vast experiences that are out there in Asia and Latin America on sustainable urban mobility solutions. And we're advising the European Commission on where the gaps are to fill in that research program, and how a city-to-city transfer that can work. And this is going well beyond the say more traditional north to south. This is really in a three-way dialogue way that we facilitate south-to-south cooperation, but also bring back great experiences from countries in Asia and Latin America to Europe, because they're also eager to learn more from those cities. And we're covering all the elements that are relevant for urban mobility. So that's public transport and infrastructure, city logistics as well, also an area that we keep to under research to a certain extent as well. So city logistics is a vital part of our work as well. Sustainable urban mobility plans and integrated planning, which aims to bring all the bits and pieces of the puzzle together, and not just from a policy side, but also is vital to the durability of the solutions that we're talking about, because the public participation and stakeholder participation is a core element of sustainable urban mobility planning, and that kind of ensures buy-in from all the relevant partners. So this is a key element of our work. And then the network and mobility management and intelligent transport solutions that can help facilitate efficiency, and the clean vehicles part is covered in our project as well. So where we start with this project is not, this is not supposed to be just a project where we do a few things, publish something, put it on the website, and then go home and do something else. This is intended to be generating new initiatives, new take-ups. This is both on filling the research gaps that are out there and that are perceived and real, but also keep the ball rolling and initiating new take-up projects with our cities in particular. And this is like twinning the cities, the leaders and learners, and providing some clear guidance that initiates new work to foster take-up in those cities that we're working with. So just to conclude almost, I see Lou has a fast time, a clock running there already, so I should be keeping going. So we've been teaming up various cities from around the world. We'll hear soon from the city team of Kochi and Hangzhou. So we had a meeting a few months ago where we brought all our cities together and let them choose which city to team up with. So like, you know, who has experience and who has needs that fit the needs best. One of the cities is Kochi and Hangzhou. Kocaeli in Turkey and Budapest are another team. Belo Horizonte in Bremen, Leon in Curitiba, in Mexico and Brazil, and Guyang and Barcelona are another team that we're currently working with. I'm getting louder, I'm not sure why that is. I go further away from the microphone. And then we have another a number of cities, we're training cities, one of which is Matale here in Sri Lanka, and we provide some training workshops for them. And as a last example of one of the, say, deliverables of our solutions project that we have worked with our partner UN Habitat and others is the Urban Electric Mobility Initiative that was launched at the Climate Summit in New York a few weeks ago and mentioned this morning in the speech that was given on behalf of the Secretary General. And there it is quite vital for us to electric mobility can play a role, but for us it's very important to put that into, as Alvin mentioned, the Avoid, Shift, Improve framework, so it can only really make a positive contribution to sustainable urban development and climate change and air quality if it is put into a wider framework of low carbon sustainable urban development. And this is what this initiative aims to trigger. So it has just started. If you want to know more about it, catch me in the break. I am now exactly on time, which is good. So please get involved in the project. We have a lot to share, hopefully, but we have even more to listen to. So we would be eager to hear from you and get in touch with you. Thank you.
And 0001.
That's great, which is fabulous. So Ashish, if you would give us some insights on the work that you're doing, that would be just great.
So thank you, Oliver, for a very good introduction to the project. I am part of the team that works with the Solutions large group of partners implementing the project. We are specifically focusing on cities in the region, so we are working with the city of Cochin and the city of Matale, Cochin being a take-up city and Matale being a training city. Since Oliver has very nicely introduced us to the entire project and how it's supposed to go on implementing, being implemented over the next year and a half or so, I will mainly focus on the work that we are doing with the two cities that we are focusing on as the implementing partners in the region. So I will be skipping some slides which introduce the project, which has already been done, and go on to talk to you about the city of Cochin, which is partnered with the Chinese city of Hangzhou, and a little bit about Matale, which is the training city, and how we are going further with our partners. So in Hangzhou, we are helped by our partners in China, the CATS Institute, and the opportunities that this project presents to the cities which are involved in the initiative. Just an introduction that Cochin City has been selected as a take-up city, and the cities were selected based on a call. So we asked cities to participate in a call, and based on their response to be, in terms of their interest in being part of this project, we've selected the city of Cochin, which has been partnered with the city of Hangzhou in China. And Cochin learns from Hangzhou city directly and actively, but other cities in the network and the good work that they've been doing. A little bit about the Technical Institute, which helps us interact with the city of Hangzhou. This is the Chinese Academy of Transport Sciences, our partners. And I tell you a little bit about the two cities that we are working with. So the city of Cochin, which is in the southern province of Kerala in India, along the coast. You can see a little bit about the demographic profile of the city, the travel characteristics, which tell us that there's been a major growth in two-wheeler motor transport in the cities, whereas people still move majorly using public transport. And while we were interacting with the officials as the project was going further, some of the key issues that were identified, which are very well known in other cities of similar character, are things such as missing links in the NMT infrastructure that exists. The public transport is not very reliable, though it's used very actively. There's a lot of parking on narrow alleys on the streets itself. There's a major issue of interdepartmental coordination to optimize existing transport systems. There's a lot of uncontrolled development that happens along the roadsides. There's lack of sufficient links between radial and the ring road that exists around the city, and things such as this. So these are some of the issues that we've identified while we were interacting with the city officials. And based on that, then we have interacted with them to identify areas that we can work with them to address these issues. These are some of the areas that we've identified that we can use in the city of Cochin to build upon. There is availability of all of the modes of transport. There's prospect of development of the canals system. So inland waterways can be developed, prospects for development of NMT infrastructure, and taking up bike sharing, it being a tourist city, and things such as that. And also a little bit about the training city of Matale city in Sri Lanka. I'm sure you know about it. It is a city located in the central province of Sri Lanka. It's a city housing 75,000 people or so, with a lot of floating population. It's considered as an emerging city. It's close to the city of Dambulla and the city of Kandy. And as a city, together with these regional linkages, it's a very important city in the country. So these are the two cities that we are working with. And for Cochin city, we are interacting with the Hangzhou city in China, which is the lead city. I will not talk much about that. It's the city that Cochin city is interacting with and learning from in terms of initiatives that they have implemented, and Cochin hopes to learn from that. So a very good bus transport system that exists. They have a metro also working very well, public bike share that works, water bus system that works in the city of Hangzhou, and all of this, which is very similar to the way the city of Cochin hopes to develop in future, as the city of Cochin is developing a metro project, is working on improving their inland waterways, improving public transport linkages to the bus systems that exist. So there are all of these things that they can learn from the city of Hangzhou in China through the project. Some more about things that Hangzhou has been doing. And in the recent past, what we have been able to do for the city of Cochin under the project is that we've had a small team from Cochin visit Hangzhou, interact with the officials in the city, and understand how they have implemented the various projects that they have implemented in the city. There are challenges, of course, especially in terms of the way the governance system works in a city in India as compared to a city in China. and the way a project can be taken further to the end in the different contexts. But for a city team, it is very impressive to see projects having been implemented and working very well in a similar context as India in terms of the volume of people that exist in the city. So that has been a very good learning for the city team that has visited. But we are still interacting with them on how things can be implemented in the city of Cochin. I think that's primarily it. We've had interactions and meetings in the city. There are some pictures of the recent visit that they've had, just to share with you. And that's it. Right now, the next steps for us are to do a comparative analysis between the city of Cochin and Hangzhou. This is the first visit that we've had. Based on that, finalize the feasibility study for priority projects and continue with our knowledge exchange program between the cities. That's it. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Ashish. I mean, what that highlights in particular, the last point, sounds funny, is, that government structures and governance structures are like vital to the success or failure. So, right, the comparability and with that, the transferability of solutions is like deeply affected by those structures. So it will be interesting to see what we're finding out.
Certainly.
Bring it out to the world for sure.
Certainly, certainly.
Great.
Thank you.